This is Dennis Raimondi with the Coffee League, found at thecoffeeleague.com. My guest today, Agnieszka Rojewska. She
Yeah.
is, say it correctly.
Oh, it's Agnieszka Rojewska. You
Okay.
were pretty close.
Okay, thank you. She has been taking the coffee world by storm. Amazing, a three-time Polish barista champion, also a latte art champion, just competed in the World Latte Championship, I believe, in Brazil. She's the winner of the
Yep.
London Coffee Masters competition. And I like to think of you, Agnieszka, as the Wonder Woman of coffee. Everything I read about coffee, you're in there. You're doing a remarkable job. And I just want to throw in, I thought it was a mistake when I read this, but I think it's true. You're working on your PhD in economics at the same time. Is that right?
Yes, it is.
So I'm going to guess you have a pretty full day. And also, you've been traveling. Every time I look at Facebook and see what you're doing, you're in another country. So amazing couple of years you're having here. Thank you so very much for taking the time to talk with us today.
It's my pleasure.
So let's start at the beginning. What got you into the world of coffee? And I know you owned a cafe, but what was it that led you to coffee?
Like basically, the beginning was pretty surprise for everybody, also for me, because I was just looking for a part-time job for my summer break between first and second year in university, and I was just sitting in a coffee shop, and I figured out that they might be looking for somebody for work, and I just applied. They did look for somebody. They gave me the job, and so it started like an accident. And at the very beginning, I I wasn't like going into this kind of career. I was more about to finish my economic studies, be working as a manager. I was dreaming about being a football manager, like soccer manager
Uh-huh.
for you. So I was just like, coffee was just like a summer job. But I found there a few very amazing and passionate people about coffee. So they showed me that coffee can be something else than just bitter beverage that
Yeah.
gives you a kick in the morning.
Well, tell us about that. So you were you a coffee drinker when you got involved in? Was there a particular event or a person that really triggered you and created a passion in you for coffee?
But, very beginning was I was drinking coffee, but mostly instant coffee. So
Right.
I wasn't like
Hmm.
it wasn't something special for me. It was just something that keeps me awake in the night if I needed to learn.
Hmm.
But I met two people during my beginning, and one of them was internal coach in this because it was coffee chain. So every
Hmm.
coffee shop had a person that trained the staff, and she was super passionate about coffee, and she was looking on every detail at how you work. She was actually somebody that learned me how to work with coffee and make me very efficient barista. And the other one was my business partner, not anymore, but my former business partner, and he was drawing on coffee. And
Hmm.
the first thing that attracted me to specialty coffee world was actually latte art, because I found that this is something that connects me with the customer, and it can make their day very good or very bad. So I was at the beginning, it was just simply latte art.
Right.
It took me like yeah,
Hmm. Go ahead.
yeah, like it took me a few years to realize that coffee can have different flavors than bitter, and that you don't have to put caramel sauce, whipped cream, and some extra stuff inside your cup to make it to taste delicious. So the beginning was simply like visual.
When you brew it at home, what do you
Yeah.
use?
I was just putting coffee like grounds inside the cup and pour water on it
But
because I never had time to do it
right.
basically. But after I was working in this coffee shop, I realized that the mistakes I was doing. So I started to buy different beans at the beginning.
Hmm.
So it was basically coffee that was coming from different countries, and I haven't felt this big difference at the beginning because mostly coffee in Poland is roasted dark. And I started to use simple devices like French press, some pour over coffees. But at the beginning, I had no idea what I'm doing with that.
Right. And what do you use now when you brew at home?
I don't brew at home. I
You
don't
don't.
have a coffee at home.
Okay, so everything is in the cafe, and then you opened the cafe. Is that right?
Yep. After I believe 4 years, 3 years in this chain, I quit. And it took us a year, me and the guy that showed me the latte art stuff, to find a spot for a coffee shop. And we opened it in 2000, I believe, 2013, we opened it. It was very small at the beginning. It was orange, full of, weird comic stuff, like Darth Vader faces, Spider-Man stuff. So there was like a very weird place. So it was pretty fun. But at the beginning, we were having a big mission. We wanted people to seriously take the coffee is something serious, and we were too serious, so people doesn't like us at the beginning. And after I think a year or something, we just became more relaxed about it.
Right. Well, when was your first competition, and what got you motivated to go into a competition?
Well, like the competition is very similar to my coffee career, because the first one was 4 months after I was hired in the coffee chain, and it was internal competition inside this chain, and the coach in the coffee shop applied for the competition without my permission. So again, it was a bit of an accident. And at the beginning, I was not very sure about it, but then I started to practice, and I found out that I'm learning a lot. So it wasn't a big success. It was just like just being there. It was just an experience. And my first real competition was, I believe, 3 years later. It was a barista competition, Polish Barista Championship, and in my first appearance, I got into final. I was sixth in the final, but still, I believe this was one of my greatest performances. And what I like about competition, why I keep coming back, is because I learned a lot. Like how big I can, expand my skills and like improve myself as a barista and as a brewer and as a person. Just like keeps me going back, because I know there's still a lot to learn. And normally when I work and travel, I don't have the opportunity to learn because I don't have time and sometimes strength. And competition is this motivation that just, I have to do it now. So I dig into the subject, I brew coffees, I taste coffees. And I just feel that after this 3 months of practicing, I'm just becoming better and better barista.
When you go into these brewing competitions, like the London Coffee Masters competition, do you bring your own beans, or does everybody have the same beans and they're provided? And how much time do you have to work with them? And how do you make those decisions in regard to what beans to use if you do make that choice?
Like, in different competitions, the rules are a bit different. When it comes to World Coffee Events competitions, like World Barista Championship, World Brewers Cup, World Latte Championship, most of the time we have the privilege to choose our own coffee. But London Coffee Masters is different because it contains a lot of different disciplines, and one of them is cupping, one of them is brewing, one of them is origin. So there is 9 coffees inside the competition, and we don't know what the coffees are. We have no idea what it is. So this is the tricky part, because when you cup the coffee, you can assume that more or less the processing, you can assume more or less the country, but then they give you the bag of coffee with no name on it, and you have to brew it. So this is very difficult, and you have to make those decisions very wisely. Because people always do very simple mistakes, like they choose the coffee with the potential, but then you have only 15 minutes to brew it, so you don't get the time to actually work with the coffee. So what I always do in this competition, when I cup those coffees, I look for the most balanced coffee, and I'm not looking for weird flavors. I'm looking for something that is very stable, that has a multi-layered acidity, something that I would like to drink, and something that might be easy to brew. Easy to brew means that the flavors are not like funky, they are pretty clear. So the acidity is orange, strawberry, berries, and I can name it. So it's much easier to brew this coffee. Then I just have to choose the device, and I have 15 minutes to serve the best possible cup of coffee.
Right. Now, when you choose your own beans in a competition, what do you usually go with? What origin? What country? What do you like?
It depends, because competition is a bit different than what I like. And for my barista competition, I was using Ethiopian coffee, and the choice was pretty simple. I got few samples to choose from, and this was the best. This coffee has the better balance. So there was no too high acidity, no too much bitterness. The coffee was just something that I could drink all over again, and I wasn't like tired of this coffee. When it comes to the coffee I like to drink, I prefer Central American coffees, because if I drink too much acidic coffees,
Right.
I just stop enjoying them. So I prefer. So in my usual life, I prefer like Colombia, Honduras, Costa Rica, this kind of coffees.
Right.
Competition is a little bit different.
Right. I'm curious. I have tried latte art, and I find it very, very, very difficult. So I'm always amazed by people like you that, and for people out there, and we have people listening in, and some go into competition, some just do it for fun. If somebody wants to start out doing a little latte art, what advice would you give them? How should they do it? Can you do it from home? Do you need to get? Yeah, go ahead.
You can do it from home. You just have a little bit more dishes to wash, but still it's doable. The thing is that to be good in latte art and to actually go into competition with that, you need to be very patient. Very patient, because it gets you angry very fast. Because there are like small details. If they don't work in the same second, nothing comes out. So you have to be very patient. And latte art is about like repetition. So you have to repeat the same pattern, repeat the same movements with like 10,000 times to make it good. So the problem is that if somebody is trying and it doesn't work out, just even record a video or ask somebody to show you how to do it, because sometimes the mistakes are pretty simple. Like you're not tilting the pitcher enough, so the foam is still in the pitcher, not in the cup. Or the other thing is that your spout from the pitcher is too far away from the surface of the cup, and the foam is getting under the coffee. So those are the simplest mistakes. But basically, what I was doing, I was watching YouTube videos, and then I was going back to work. I was just trying, and when something worked out, I was trying to figure out what did I do, and if the next cup didn't work out, so what was the difference between first and the second? It's pretty difficult to work on it alone, because you don't always see your own mistakes.
Right.
But even like small workshops, like a lot of coffee shops do a workshop from latte art. Just like 1 or 2 hours. So they will point out the most important things. It's always faster when somebody is pointing out. Yeah.
Who did you watch on YouTube?
Baco 777, I think. But it was 10 years ago. There was no YouTube video then.
Right.
But he's from Australia. Now he's a roaster for Ona Coffee. It's Sam Cora. So I believe that his videos were giving me the most information. Now you can find a lot of tutorials, which is very, very good.
Right. I have a question I specifically wanted to ask you, and that is, you've been traveling the world. I mean, literally Asia, South America, all over Europe, and I've been following you. And one of the things that I'm interested in, and I'm no coffee expert. I'm a journalist that covers coffee. But one of the things that fascinates me about coffee is the culture that grows up around it. And it's different. I've been all over Europe. I've been all over the States. And in different areas, in different regions, the coffee culture is a little different. What is your experience in terms of the coffee culture? You started in Poland, but going to Asia, South America, all over Europe, wherever. How does it differ, and what are some of the things that you observed in regard to that?
Like when I travel, I always try to see the small like local places, like the real culture of this country. Because when it comes to specialty coffee, it's more like we're similar. Like the type of coffees we are doing, the type of coffees we're brewing, the way we brew it, it's more or less similar according to specialty coffee, which is of course like the small part of the industry. But when it comes like to natural culture of different countries, like for example Italy, south of Italy you get like very strong espresso, like a lot of robusta. Then you have like Portugal, still dark roasted coffee, cortado, a little bit different amounts of coffee and milk mixed together. Then you go to Asia, and like I like to try those typical kind of coffees, because this is actually opens your mind that why the culture in this country grows in this particular way. So this is something that amazed me during those travels, to try those traditional ways of drinking coffee. When it comes to specialty coffee, what I see that Asia is growing super fast, and they open, I think, in some of the cities 30 coffee shops a week, which is super good, which is super fast.
Wow.
Then I can see Australia, which is, and United States. They have already established market. And when I say established, I mean that the customers and consumers of coffee, they already know why they are drinking this kind of coffee, and they are drinking it outside. In Poland, like the baristas are very well, the knowledge is very high in here. We have a lot of good coffee shops, good roasteries, but the customers doesn't get it yet. They're a little bit behind us, so we are still growing. And in different countries, you can see that there is a great baristas community, but customers are not looking for what baristas are serving them.
Interesting. When you travel, when you go to cafes, what advice what advice can you give cafes in general in terms of how they can be better, especially cafes that serve specialty coffee? And one of the things I've noticed, for instance, is there's a real range in any given cafe I go to, especially if it's a smaller independent, in terms of the barista skill. In the States, anyway, it's like that. You'll get some baristas that are very well trained, and others that really aren't. And your experience will be very much dependent upon which barista you get.
Yeah, but the thing is that most of the time it's not the fault of the barista, it's the fault of the owner.
Right.
Because some of the owners, they don't see the reason to invest money into a person that most probably won't be working in this place in 2 or 3 years. But they don't think about it, that if he's not trained, he's not going to stay, and you'll have a problem because he will be serving bad coffee.
Right.
So this is the problem on the owner's side. But what I keep saying, that every coffee shop, doesn't matter how great or bad coffee serves, supposed to put like 60% of the attention to hospitality, because you can always learn skills. You can do it.
Mm-hmm.
Sooner or later, you will know how to steam milk. You will know how to make an espresso. It comes with time, but you cannot learn hospitality. And I sometimes visit coffee shops when I drink horrible coffees, but I would come back because the baristas are super happy. Like the people that serve me, they're super happy and positive. And if they are giving me a very bad coffee, I don't even want to ruin their day or their humor by saying it. If they ask me how was it, I'm like, okay. Because I would come back for that person, maybe not for that coffee.
Right. That's a great point. Actually, when I walk into a cafe, what I look for is the enthusiasm and passion of the barista, and I think that's a big part of it. Do you miss or do you still enjoy, if you're doing it, being a barista and interacting with people?
Of course, like this is it's like I don't have a coffee shop anymore. I used to have it, but I had to sold it, my part, because of the travels. And when I now travel and do trainings, I miss making coffee just for people and serve them, in the morning or in the evening. This is the thing that I miss the most in my job.
That's a fantastic point. I also wanted to ask, in the States and throughout the world, but especially in the States, what we're seeing a lot of is consolidation. Big conglomerates, big corporations are buying specialty coffee chains. Like Blue Bottle just got bought, Intelligentsia and Stumptown were bought by Peace, and then a big German conglomerate bought them all. Do you think that type of consolidation? And I generally like to support the independents because it's more difficult for them, and there's a part of me that understands the consolidation, but feels it's not a great thing. What is your feeling about it? Do you think that's good or bad for specialty coffee?
I have a bit of mixed feelings, because I heard about all those big transactions, but we yet don't know what these big companies will do with those specialty chains, because it might go in a very good way when Nestle is putting a lot of money into Blue Bottle as a specialty coffee chain. They're not changing anything. They're put money into quality, but they will let Blue Bottle grow faster and promote the specialty coffee, and we will all gain out of that. But if Nestle will try to make only money out of Blue Bottle, so this will be bad. But I believe that we are in this position when those big companies are looking for a, like they see the small part of the market, the specialty coffee, and how specialty coffee as a community is something that might be worth investing. And I can see it in Poland that big companies like Starbucks or McDonald's, they have money to promote coffee, to educate people. Because can you just imagine that there is a
Right.
small coffee shop around the corner? They don't have those thousands of dollars to put on a billboard 100% Arabica or grind your coffee fresh. And that
Right.
was doing McDonald's at some point.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
so I hope that they will do something good with those big transactions, but until they get any decision, we don't know.
Yeah, I had the green buyer for Blue Bottle, Charlie Habiger,
Yeah.
I interviewed him, and he felt it was good in that people there at Blue Bottle will get paid better, baristas will get paid better, they'll have real careers, they'll have good health insurance in the States, and so that there was a lot of benefit that came from it. Also, Peter Giuliano, who was one of the founders of Counterculture, is now on the
Yeah.
specialty coffee board for the U.S. and Europe. Also felt it was beneficial for that reason. So I think, like you, I have mixed feelings about it. It can be real good, and I think there's some good signs of it, and hopefully it will be. And tell us also, you mentioned before, and I want to hear a little bit more about this, about the tremendous expansion that's going on in Asia. And I know that you've been in Asia and seen the coffee scene there. What's happening? Are people really getting turned on to coffee? Is it really exploding the industry there now?
When I travel there, I actually feel it's exploding. Like even the Starbucks was making before Milan, the biggest roastery they opened in Shanghai, and you can see. But the thing I see there, I believe that Chinese people they are not super into coffee. They just know it's a trend.
Mm-hmm.
I can feel it's kind of a trend, and there is like few very small specialty coffee shops and people passionate about coffee. But the Chinese big companies in China just felt that there's so much coffee boom in Asia that everybody is opening a coffee shop. They even have like KFC opened a specialty coffee shop. Yeah,
Really?
they actually asked me to do a training for them, and then you go in there, and it's not under the KFC brand, but then you have a Slayer espresso machine in there, and a lot of good coffee shops that actually care about coffee and serve high quality coffees. They cannot afford it, and you have like Slayer, like every
Mm-hmm.
single coffee shop in made by KFC, which is like crazy. And I
Right.
believe that at some point they will they are coming to the point when a lot of coffee shops are opening, but also the same amount of coffee shops are closing because there is like too much.
Right. Right.
There is too much. Still, Chinese people prefer to drink tea, not coffee.
Right. Right. I think it'll be a gradual process, and even if 5% of China
Yeah,
starts drinking coffee, that's a lot of people. I also wanted to ask
yeah.
you. I wanted to get your thoughts. What do you think of that big facility that Starbucks is opening in Milan, Italy?
Well, I haven't been there, but for me, it's kind of interesting because Italy is this kind of a country that has like this very old and very strict coffee culture.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe that a lot of Italians are not very happy about Starbucks opening in there. And I can agree with that in some point because Starbucks is serving so much different type of coffee. But on the other hand, the roastery concept is something more than just like espressos, venti, cappuccino, caramel macchiatos,
Right.
and all that stuff. They are serving much different coffees, and I believe that it might be good for Italians to actually learn that you can make out of coffee something else than only espresso.
Right.
So I haven't been there yet. I will be there in December. But in here also, I can see that there are like pros and cons because Starbucks is, of course, a huge company.
Right.
But I believe that with the money they have and they already invested there, they can actually grow awareness of, pour over
Right.
coffees within this, Italian strict espresso drinkers.
Right.
So we'll see. But
Right.
I have high hopes for
Yeah.
that.
I think that's a very good point. I was at the Seattle Coffee Expo and I went to the big Starbucks facility there
Yeah.
that'll be like the one in Milan, and it was
Yeah.
like coffee Disneyland. And I think
Yeah.
most of the people there were not serious coffee people; they were just tourists wanting to see it. But I think it does get people interested, and it does get people
Yeah.
moving in the direction, and it can be. It wouldn't be a place that I would go on a daily basis to have my coffee, but I think it serves a good purpose, and ultimately it'll be good
Yeah.
for all levels of specialty coffee.
At some point the customer goes into the Starbucks Reserve Roastery and they hear that coffee can be from different origins, that coffee
Right.
can be freshly ground, and they just get those like small informations, and sooner or later they will actually go into specialty coffee shops, and then they will see the difference in quality. But there have to be this stop in between, and I think that Starbucks, with this, being a touristic place, will do a great job for that.
Right.
Next to the Starbucks in Seattle is a Victrola coffee shop, I think, and it's like it is a specialty coffee shop. So
Right.
this is just next door, and so even if somebody goes into Starbucks and there is nowhere to sit, and he goes next door, and he will actually get even better experience
Yeah.
according
No.
to flavors.
Yeah. Exactly. I mean, if I have a friend and they know nothing about coffee and they want to
Yeah,
learn more, and they're in Seattle, I'd say go there, see it, and then they get excited, and then they'll say, "Where do I go next?" And then I'll recommend some other place. I wanted to ask
yeah,
you
exactly.
one other question, and that is that you're working on your PhD in economics, and
Yeah.
so obviously that takes a lot of time and energy. What do you want to do with that doctoral degree, that PhD, and will you still stay in coffee? And where do you see yourself in 5 or 10 years?
Well, the thing with the PhD started before I was becoming this, as you call, the Wonder Woman in coffee.
Yep.
So, like everything is like reversing now. Before I started to win all those competitions, I was thinking that maybe I'll stay in a university because I am kind of a science brain, so it would
Mm-hmm.
be pretty okay with me. But then, like the coffee world started to drag me in and drag me in much more. So I'm a bit worried about my PhD degree because I'm a bit too busy to
Right.
finish it. But if you ask me when I see myself in 5 or 10 years, I have to say that I don't know because I didn't plan anything that happened this year. I didn't plan winning World Barista
Right.
Championship, and now my life is just reversed. So I
Mm-hmm.
will just wait what the future brings and choose like on spot because like as for now I just learned that planning is the worst thing I can do because I'm never going like
Right.
to the point I planned. I actually jump somewhere in many different directions. So uh,
My experience exactly, and I have 3 graduate degrees that I don't use.
yeah.
I'm sure whatever you do, you're going to be tremendously successful. One final question, and that is, who are some of the people in coffee now that you admire, that you feel are great teachers or good influencers in the world of coffee?
I always admired James Hoffman.
Hmm.
I love his point of view. He's always, even from like small details, can actually show you that there is a problem somewhere in the industry. I
Hmm.
loved Peter Giuliano. I've never met him in person.
Hmm.
I only know how he looks like, but I love the guy for his attitude and his knowledge, and he's super great. I also admire the work of Matt Berger.
Hmm.
Like he was super innovative in some point, and I admire his business. How he actually made business out of it. This is pretty
Hmm.
interesting. According to my studies, this is a very good case. Um, I think it's hard to say who else. Oh, I always admired Heather Perry. Heather, she's like super like strong
Right.
woman in the coffee industry.
Hmm.
And there is this amazing woman in Brazil. She's having a Instagram coffee sensorium. She's doing a neuro, I don't know how to say in English, but she's doing a research about how your brain can influence the perception of flavor.
Wow.
She's super nice. She's super good. Yeah.
Great. Yeah. But for those listening in, I have an interview with Peter Giuliano. A very, very interesting story. He's doing great work. Well, Agnieszka, thank you so much for coming on. This is fabulous. And I want to be the first one to say that I I coined the term you as the Wonder Woman of coffee because really, everywhere I read, everywhere I look, your name is there. You're doing great work. I know you're going to be tremendously successful. Do you have any plans to come to the States anytime soon?
I will be in the World Barista Championship in Boston next year.
Oh, great.
I'll be giving my trophy, giving
Uh-huh.
away it, and I believe I will stay there for a few trainings around the states, maybe Phoenix and Las Vegas. And I was planning to visit Seattle once more, so we'll see. But I will be there in April.
Right. And do you get to Scandinavia at all? I spent part of the year in Sweden.
Oh, I never been to Sweden.
Oh, you should come. Great coffee culture. They would love you up there, and there's a lot going on. So yeah, that would be fantastic. Well, thank you so much for coming on. Any final words you'd like to share with
Oh,
our listeners?
I hope that you enjoyed it and it wasn't a boring story. And if you don't drink specialty coffee yet, don't believe barista that coffee have to be acidic. It have to be balanced.
Uh-huh. Fantastic. Thank you so very much.
Thanks, my pleasure.